Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack here. Thursday now, the 7th day of November. Still 2024. Yep, we're marching through almost to the end of the year, but we're not there yet, and it is still hurricane season. And with that being said, Rafael now in the Gulf of Mexico. But as I'm going to show you, pretty remarkable that we don't really have to worry about it. I mean, think about it. Just a few weeks ago, you saw something like that in the Gulf, and it would be a big problem. It was a big problem. We've had big problems already. Not this time around with Rafael. We're going to discuss that and a few other interesting things throughout today's update. So thank you for tuning in. All right, let's get started. First, this tweet here from our friends over at Weather Tiger. Ryan always has the way of writing. I love this. Superficially scary, but ultimately innocuous Category 2 Hurricane Rafael poses no real threat to the U.S. Gulf Coast. And this next part I find very, very interesting. Thank decades of progress in hurricane modeling that we can accurately forecast storms like Rafael, preventing costly and unnecessary evacuations and closures. I mean, look at that. You see that down in the southeast Gulf, that menacing hurricane. You'd be like, uh-oh, maybe it's heading up here or whatever, and it is not. Very, very cool stuff, how far the science has gotten us over decades and decades of work in that realm. Here it is on a wider satellite shot. Hey, I think it's on its way back to trying to become a Category 3. Again, maybe a major hurricane. Check out the pretty prominent outflow here on the western side, especially. A little choked looking around the eastern semicircle of the hurricane, but a pretty healthy hurricane at that. And it will send out these swells. Just like you get in the Atlantic, the swells will emanate out from Rafael and eventually reach the Gulf Coast. All over the place, Yucatan, everywhere. Florida Keys, you name it. And that'll give a little bit of a rise in the water levels overall, but hey, that is a lot better than dealing with the onslaught of a bona fide, well-developed hurricane coming out of and through the Gulf of Mexico. But it is pretty cool to think, with that being there, nobody along the coast here has to worry about a landfall, and we know that with almost near certainty. That is amazing. That's pretty good stuff there for us mere human beings, right? All right, one thing Rafael did do, sort of directly, indirectly, whatever you want to call it. This was really interesting. Let's actually go back to November 4th real quick. From Tomer. Remember Tomer Berg? I tell you what, these graphics and infographics and whatnot, absolutely terrific. Tomer posted the other day, meteorologically speaking, this is not a typical predecessor rain event or PRE type setup, as there is no clear trough interaction, rather a quasi-stationary corridor of moisture flux convergence downstream of Rafael sets up over Georgia and South Carolina. And that's just all fancy ways of saying, really the way this Bermuda High was sitting out here, let's use this green color, that'll help it pop better. And you know what? In fact, let's just do this. Whoop, make the graphic bigger. Now we can work with it. So a few days ago, this was set up, and you could see it in the modeling that there was a pretty good stream of moisture that was getting pulled out of that deep source, which, of course, was Rafael. And it was looking like that could set up over parts of the southeast and bring quite a bit of heavy rain. Now, luckily, that heavy rain was not looking like it was going to be in western portions of the Carolinas or Georgia, where the absolutely terrifying floods took place recently. But as Tomer had circled here in the purple, it looked like it was going to be more in sort of the Midlands parts of Georgia and South Carolina. And in fact, that is what has happened. And he goes on to say, while Rafael itself won't track into Georgia, moisture ahead of it will contribute to heavy rainfall in parts of Georgia and South Carolina late on Wednesday and Thursday, which is today, with over 6 inches of rain and flooding possible. All right? So there you go. That was all the different stuff he was talking about, and it has, in fact, come to fruition. And this is his graphic that he accompanied today. He didn't make this, but he's just posting it. As expected, an excessive rain event associated with moisture from Hurricane Rafael unfolded in parts of Georgia and South Carolina overnight, last night into today, with localized totals over a foot of rain in South Carolina. Now we can click on it. There it is. And in fact, we got a little bit of rain over here in my area in Wilmington, and we needed it. It's been darn dry. But the good thing is it did avoid these areas over here, which is just excellent. Anything like that coming up over western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, man, that will just be cruel for nature to do that. But we know nature does not care. It just does what it does. But anyway, interesting stuff there. Tomer was on top of it, and I thought I would point it out. So the Gulf of Mexico, very warm still. And I want to point something out that I think is important, where we are very lucky that Rafael is not going to impact land. Notice the 26 Celsius line right here. That's your 80-degree line, roughly. And now it is, because of the way the pattern is, and that Bermuda high just pumping, those southerly winds. Come on, Mark, spit it out. Those southerly winds around the Bermuda high, that has helped. I need like a big giant arrow in here. That's what I want. There we go. And that has pushed that 80-degree line back up into the southern areas of Louisiana. And so had Rafael done what the GFS was suggesting, which was to come across and then maybe come up here like this, yeah, we could have had some problems. And if it had been a little bit more west over here, yeah, absolutely. Water temperatures could have supported a steady hurricane all the way to landfall. But as we just have alluded to over here, thank decades of progress in hurricane modeling, so forth and so on, we know that's not going to happen. But I just thought it was interesting to note that, yes, the 26C line still pretty far to the north, and as such, of course, the anomalies are warmer than average as well, which we've been over extensively. But Rafael currently sitting right in here over very warm water temperatures, probably on its way to becoming a major hurricane once again. So here it is, pretty weird map, you got to admit. This is where it got its start, down in the southwestern Caribbean, part of that favorable MJO that's set up over here. And by the way, we're not done yet. I think there's another one coming. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But here's the track that it took, splitting the real close to the eastern part of the Cayman Islands, certainly, and then becoming a Category 3 yesterday over western Cuba, now sitting in the Gulf. But just look at this kind of wacky track that it's going to do. That's November for you, where the steering patterns are very weird. You get the thing coming in, and again, for a little bit it looked like it would try to come up this way, but then we're going to get what we have in the upper atmosphere, this high pressure building in, basically sitting over, I didn't mean for it to be green, but whatever, the southeast, and that's just going to block it. It can't go that way. And so it's going to get sort of shoved to the south. The dry air, the shear will impact it. And then the low-level, not literal skeletal remains, but the low-level vorticity remains, whatever. You'll see. I'll show it to you. It's going to be a swirl down there. And honestly, it'll be kind of neat to look at that as it just goes away in the Gulf of Mexico. So pretty fascinating stuff. Oh, and by the way, we don't want to just completely ignore that we did have this depression over here, and it's dissipating. That was number 14E for Eastern Pacific. So the ACE, I told you I was going to bring this up again today. I texted Phil, Dr. Klotzbach, just to verify what does it take on the ACE score to reach hyperactive activity, and he said that number is 160. Let's get red up here. 160 ACE points is considered a hyperactive season, and we are at about 152. Rafael might put us over the top where the season is officially hyperactive. It doesn't really have anything to do with the numbers of named storms. So fixated on that, I fell victim to that over the years as well. And it's really about the impacts. Number one, that's the biggest metric of all, impacts. And absolutely zero people can forecast with accuracy impacts well ahead of time, months out. I mean, come on, even 6 hours out, you saw what happened with Milton. We weren't exactly sure that it was not going to go right up into Tampa Bay with that core. Point being, it is all about the impacts first, and then the quality of the hurricanes and storms that do form, mainly the hurricanes, because those give us these big ACE points. You know, as an example, 14 for Ernesto. 35, a big ACE producer, was Beryl. And then other ones in here, Kirk, 23, also 23 from Milton, because it was a Cat 5 for a while. And all of these have added up. These are just like players on a basketball team, for example. And these are their stats. This is your stat sheet. And the total right now sitting at about 152, 8 points away from being hyperactive. And that's important because that is what was forecast. A historic hyperactive season. Yes, some of those numbers of named storms are not going to be anywhere near, maybe. But we're not going to have 25. But who cares? Those junk storms that typically last for a day or two, those don't usually bother anybody anyway. Those weren't prevalent this year. You know what was? All of these big ace producers. And a lot of those hit land. And they were very, very problematic. And that was well forecast ahead of time. And we'll talk about that more at the end of the season when we start to really wrap things up. I'm just planting the seed, though. It was a darn good forecast overall from most of the agencies that put out such things. All right? So there's old Rafael on the GFS from 12Z today. This disturbance over here, my man Brent down in the Virgin Islands keeps sending me pictures. In fact, my apologies that I did not queue one up. So let's see if I can pull this off. We'll just do this in real time, right? Let's go over to Brent's text message from earlier. And let's see if I can just show you on the, there we go, on the camera there. See that? Look at that rock. That was outside of his driveway over in St. John. I know it's not focusing very well, but he's had some rock slides in the area recently. Let's see if I've got another one that he showed me. Yeah, there's one from the other day from all that heavy rain over there. I know it's a little bit out of focus, but lots of problems down there, and he's been trying to work. He has like a sewer septic company down there, and he does a lot of sewer and septic and tank work, and he's got a private island that he's been trying to work on. Hadn't been happening because of all that heavy rain down there. And our other friends in the Virgin Islands, you can attest to that as well, I'm sure. And that's owed to this disturbance that's been sitting down here. Not going to develop fully, but hey, who needs full development when it's already causing problems, right? But watch what happens. We'll run the GFS out over the next few days. That system plaguing this area now moves across the greater Antilles with more heavy rain. And I already showed you what that can do. But then watch over here with old Rafael as it starts to lose that deep vorticity signature. Really fascinating stuff. It just goes away. Isn't that neat? I think that's neat. That's just as cool, meteorologically speaking, all right, as watching one of these things develop. Mechanically, meteorologically, all that, they are fascinating. It's a real bummer that they cause the anxiety and the problems that they do. But they do, and we have to respect that. So look at that. It just dies away. And it's interesting. Look at the precip and moisture. The dry air. That's the killer, even more than colder water, in my opinion. And I'd stand by that any day. You get that dry air injected in there, it's all over. Those things really collapse quickly. All right, let's run this out to day 5 because I've got to show you something important. This feature right here. But before we get to that, remember this because we're going to jump over here to Tyler's post. Tyler Stanfield, while Rafael churns in the Gulf, a broad and slow-moving tropical wave may bear watching as it moves into the Western Caribbean in about a week to 10 days. We're starting to see a TCG signal, tropical cyclogenesis, comparable to that of Rafael's that could yield the 18th storm of the season, which would be Sarah. And there is the energy right there on this particular satellite shot that Tyler posted. So we're going to have to watch that very closely because it is showing up in the modeling. Let's back this up. There's the energy right there that Tyler is referring to. Watch what happens. That comes through the windwards. So our friends down there in the Windward Islands, this is heading your way. Gets into the Caribbean. And within just a few days, it interacts with that Central American gyre. And we're off to the races again by about a week's time. Something else tries to develop. And again, that might get us our 18th named storm. So we're going to have to watch for that. And I'm going to tell you, honestly, that's pretty much confined now to our friends down here that we really have to worry about this stuff. Because look, these big troughs are coming, big upper level lows and whatever. The height pattern up on the northern part, nothing's going to be able to get up into the southeast. I'm very, very confident of that. Not 100%, because the weather, look, it works like this. It's real simple. It's not 100% until it's happening. And I'm not even being facetious. You can't say with 100% confidence There's an interesting stat. I saw this once. It's a 100% probability. That doesn't even make sense, right? Because if it's 100%, it is happening. Anyway, very confident that anything that does develop down in the Caribbean, and let me just run this out a few more days, you'll see what I mean, probably going to trek off to the north and east, all right? So very little concern for Florida or the Gulf Coast or whatnot, but still great concern because of the pattern and the way that the climatology dictates that something could develop and start moving off toward some of these island nations down here, and we definitely have to watch that very closely. All right? So let's move out of the tropics briefly, because you know what? Once hurricane season's over, I'm still going to be right here. We got a lot of winter stuff to do, and we'll talk about that later, but yeah, we definitely don't just shut everything down after November 30th. And to that end, man, look at all this happening out in Colorado and New Mexico. Blizzard warnings in northeast New Mexico. I have driven through there. Beautiful area. My goodness, I could only imagine what it's like right now. That'd be great. I missed this one. I didn't see this one coming. And these storms that happen out here, I was trying to find a better color, maybe that purple color. They're very hard to predict. You know, you don't see these 7 days out and be like, yeah, lock it in, I'm heading out there. You know, usually it's a couple days and it's like, uh-oh, there it is. So you got the cold sector over here, and that's where all your heavy snow is. Blizzard warnings even in northeast New Mexico. And then in the warm sector, the potential for very, very heavy rainfall. So, yeah, winter's coming eventually, but over the southeast and the east, very warm and muggy with that big high-pressure area. Some of that moisture getting pulled up from Rafael, adding to that. I mean, it really is. It's dreary and muggy outside here at the HurricaneTrack office in Wilmington, North Carolina. All right? So, yeah, interesting weather pattern overall. Hurricane in the Gulf, big snows in the Rockies, and muggy and just in between, whatever. And the fires out in California, of course, been very dry and windy out there. That's been a big problem. So a lot is happening. And, again, we're going to talk about this deeper into November, but a lot will be going on with HurricaneTrack. I mean, just think of us as HurricaneTrack weather. You know, the HurricaneTrack's the brand, and we cover all kinds of weather. Everything circulating back around, pun intended, to hurricanes, which are the Super Bowl of weather events for coverage, and everything we do kind of leads back to that in the end. So we'll stay on top of stuff even outside of hurricane season. Lake effect snow, I can't wait for that. See, I'm already getting ahead of myself. We'll do it in the next couple of weeks. We'll talk more about off-season stuff, all right? Have a good rest of your Thursday. As always, thanks for giving me a part of your day. And as always, I hope you learned something from all of us at HurricaneTrack. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.